From deep in the Burbank Media District, it's time for another edition of My Burbank Talks. This podcast is presented by the staff of My Burbank. Now, let's see what's on today's agenda as we join our program.
Hello, Burbank. Craig Short here with you once again, of course, with our cohort and our co-host, Ross Benson.
Dun, 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 dun. Where's the timpanis?
Now, always so much we can do in our budget here for you.
Okay.
Next time, let us know in advance. You might like those. We'll get them for you.
It's okay. My tally light wasn't on. So, are we in the studio?
I think we're in the studio.
Well,
who's our guest?
Well, go ahead and introduce him, Ross.
Nick Schultz.
Hey,
when did you show up?
I've been here all along. Good to see you guys. And
You are our assembly member
I'm still your assembly member
for the
44th district, which includes Burbank. And I'm really excited to be here back in the studio with you, Craig. Thanks for your hospitality. And, of course, Ross, congratulations on your key to the city.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Ross, do me a favor. We got to kind of not hit the camera because it's showing me in the earthquake mode here.
Really?
Yeah, you got to be very careful on move the table.
Oh,
Okay, that could be me. That could be me. I'll be.
Okay, we'll be fine. We're fine. Anyhow.
Oops.
So let's talk a little about. Yeah, I'm going to first get into a couple things here. I was thinking about on your way over here, and we got things that we want to get into, of course.
Oh, it's fine.
But I might be a little long-winded here. But I want to ask you how people feel the state government is really responding to them. If you look at over the years, I'm going to start with back with when the lotto came to California.
Okay.
I don't know if you were even around at that time or anything else.
I remember it, yeah.
Okay, but it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And the whole idea behind the lotto was it's going to go, all the profits are going to go to schools. And that's a great thing. So we start the lotto, and it's doing really well, and they're big checks to the schools. And then the California, our government, either, I don't know, Assembly or Senate or whatever it was, they figured, okay, let's say, and I'm gonna make up a number for you. I have no idea. Let's say there's 10% of the budget went towards school funding, and the lottery brought in, let's say, I'm going to say 5% of the budget toward the schools. So instead of the schools getting 15% now and doing better, well, the state cut 5% off their share, saying, well, they're getting that money now from the lotto. They don't need our money, and we'll use it for something else. So the schools never got better, and they never got stronger, and all the things we were promised never happened because they said, okay, well, they can use that money instead of the money that we should be putting into them. And that was 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Sure.
And over the years, and I look at the fires recently. Mm-hmm. People lost their houses. People lost, their businesses. And I'm still hearing from people that it's the red tape. We can't, why are we not fixing things like there's so much going on out there that we don't seem to respond to people. The prices in California, the gas prices are $1.25 higher than anywhere else in the country. It seems like nothing is being done for the average citizen on an average day, that the state just keeps spending more money, and we don't seem to be really fixing problems. Even homelessness. 1,500 homeless people died last year in LA County.
Terrible.
Of the 72,000 that are homeless. Mm-hmm. So like 4% died, and we got 2% in the housing. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars on what? Where's the money? Where's the accountability? I think you see why people are saying, They throw their hands up in the air and say, we can't control this, there's nothing we can do. But it's been a long thing and that's not you because you've been there for 1 year. So I'm not blaming you, but I'm just saying the pattern, and that's why people, I think, are disconnected from government.
I think you're right. Before I jump in, Ross, were you going to?
Yeah, I just yesterday went shopping. Can't use plastic bags anymore as of the 1st.
Yeah, that's a new law that'll take us.
And the whole recycling thing that we had, we went to recycling, had to use plastic bags or bring your own. That got shit canned out the window now. Brown paper bags, we're back down to brown paper bags. Mm-hmm. It didn't work, folks, but how many millions of dollars did we piss out the window with that whole program? It just is frustrating. I know you're going to talk about the fires. What about the people that, the ones that you don't see, the ones that aren't vocal? There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
That after the fires, they didn't have the right insurance. Their houses burned down, and everything except the clothes on their back.
Yeah, let me add on to that too, because all the insurance companies they're not paying, and they're leaving, and they've asked for rate increases, and we're giving it to them. And I'm going to myself, how is our government being responsive in these situations? Why wasn't there a committee or a place set up where everybody could take their insurance form into this place, and they tell the insurance companies, okay, here it is, you've got to pay this, instead of making these people jump through hoops. I once again, we're not solving bigger issues as they come up and solving them. We're just doing the best we can do, they say.
No, look, guys. I think it's great, and maybe we can take. There's a couple topics baked in there, so we can.
Under the bus. I'm just
No.
I think I'm frustrated like most other people are.
No, and I'm glad. And I would say like there's a couple topics you brought up. Maybe we could piece it and we'll take a couple. So I'll start in a moment with affordability, but I just wanted to say, like, if anyone ever gives you guys, because I've seen it, I've seen the criticism of, oh, it's all softball and scripted questions. I mean, you guys are asking what a lot of people are feeling right now. So I just hope your listeners know, like, you guys aren't pulling punches. Like, you're trying to ask fair, reasonable
I never
questions.
do.
You never have.
I don't worry about criticism.
I've always sat right here. You guys have never pulled punches. So, okay, let me start with just sort of the big picture, and that is where I think what my response would be to the criticism, and then maybe we could talk about insurance, housing, all the good stuff. But I would say that the frustration that you both described, I'm hearing it every single day. I think the short answer to your leadoff question, Craig, is that I think we actually are doing a lot of good things, and I'll try to talk about those today. But I think we're doing a terrible job of messaging it. I think that, to your point, Ross, you're hearing about the plastic bag ban. What you're not hearing about is what we're doing to bring the insurance industry back. And there are things we're doing, but we're just somehow not able to communicate that message out to voters. And I think that heading into 26, people want to see results. They want to see what we're doing to make California a more affordable place to live. So maybe what I can do is start with, let's start with the fires and housing, kind of that area.
Okay,
and then we can dive in. I definitely have things to say on insurance and jobs, but just because we've kind of talked about the fire situation. So one of the things that we have done is we've tried to cut back the red tape to get housing production boosted. And I want to be really clear. A lot of the conversation around housing in recent years and this year with SB 79 has been about where you can build the housing, zoning. I'm not talking about that, though it's a fair point, and we can certainly get into that. I'm talking about, okay, in the city of Burbank, we have plenty of places that have been identified for housing production, but why aren't we actually building the housing? So there's 3 things that we did this year, 2 that my office spearheaded, and then one other one I'll briefly talk about, then I'll pause. First of all, CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. It's an important piece of legislation. It can also be abused. You can file a lawsuit and tie up a project for years. One of the things that we did not author in my office, but we voted for and we passed, was an infill housing exemption. So if you are building infill housing in an urban setting like we have in Burbank, you're no longer going to be subject to the weaponization of CEQA. There are some in the environmental community that are concerned, and I get that. But at the end of the day, CEQA has been a barrier to housing production. And when we're talking about putting housing in an urban area, we need to cut that red tape and streamline the process. That'll help not only with the rebuild of Altadena in the wake of the Eaton fire, it'll also hopefully help Burbank actually meet its housing goals and build more housing. Number 2, I'll briefly mention, is the building code. So to your point, Craig, despite all this work around zoning, we're still not actually building many more units of housing. A lot of things that are beyond city and state control, like the tariffs, supply chain, a lot of the global economic issues. But one thing we've looked at is the building code. So we ran a bill this year, AB 306, that was incorporated into the governor's budget. I think I talked briefly about it last time. That freezes the building code, the residential building code, for 6 years, so that we already have some of the most energy efficient leading standards in the world. It sets the map for the next 6 years and says, this is what's going to be expected of you. We're not going to have changes in materials or other things. So hopefully it'll hold the cost steady, and that'll lead to more housing production. And then the last thing I'll just briefly mention, then I'll pause, is AB 1050. That was a bill we also ran. We know we need housing, but an ADU here and there is not going to fix it. We need large-scale housing. We need to develop housing on the old Kmart location, the old IKEA location. AB 1050 passed the legislature, bipartisan basis, Democrat and Republican support. Governor signed it, and he even wrote in his signing message, this is one of the most common sense kind of measures that we need more of. Very simply, it says the conditions, covenants, and restrictions on commercial parcels that generally prohibit the development of housing, those are now lifted statewide. So we're actually building more housing. So I'll pause there, but I bring that up to say I think we are trying to clear some of the red tape out and help make it easier to build more housing. But I bet before I came here, like you guys didn't know that. Like we're not doing a good enough job communicating what we're actually doing to try to lower the cost of housing production.
Don't be trying to steal our PIO.
No. Though he's fantastic.
He would get the word out. No, my question was Altadena, Pacific Palisades. Everything, it was barren land. Power poles got burnt down, utility wires. While we're fighting all this out and figuring out why aren't we putting this utilities underground so it doesn't happen again? Instead, we're spinning our wheels, coming up with these laws, and these local utilities, why aren't they digging daily? You know, and put utilities underground. So God forbid you have another catastrophe.
Yeah.
It won't be power that caused it, that's for sure.
That's a great point, Ross. And just so we can get through more questions, I'll try to do a better job, guys, of being faster in my answers.
No. We want to get into good, detailed responses. I appreciate that's how we educate people.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. I'll still do my best to find that balance. But Ross, to your point, I would say I agree. If you look back at the Thomas Fire, the Woolsey Fire, Eaton, Palisades, in almost every instance, you have a high wind event. We're going to see some of that weather here in the next couple days.
We are.
And it meets aging equipment outdoors, high wind areas, and you see the smacking of power lines and you see these ignition events with older equipment. You're right. The safest thing we can do is underground those lines. It's all a matter of cost and expense. And by the way, folks also complain about the utility bills. Right here, present company included, it's one of the main drivers of your utility bills. So the reason that you haven't seen the state push more in mandating undergrounding of lines is because it is that balance of, to do it, our public utilities like Burbank Water and Power will have to charge more to have the money to do it. And we understand that people are hurting right now. I think that what the state should be doing a better job of is talking about bonds and talking about public financing to help our POUs, because these are all ratepayer-driven expenses, right? To help them have more funding to do those large infrastructure projects. And then the IOUs, so like SoCal Edison that operates in our area, those are a different story. These are for-profit entities, and I think we can ask a little bit more of them to make sure that they're investing. But it is a matter of cost. My point I'm trying to make is we absolutely should do it. And we probably could do it tomorrow if we were willing to let the rates climb to 200%. So the real question is, what's that right balance of what is an appropriate amount of rate growth that will allow us to have the funds so we can make those changes? But you're right. The longer we wait to make it fully undergrounded in those high wind areas, we're just risking another fire.
You know, Burbank, your hometown here, how many years ago did they decide to dig underground and put recycled water everywhere? Anything that has a large field, a football field, a park, parkways, they did that infrastructure a long time ago, and it's paying off now. I mean, with the price of water and everything, and even now that recycled water is expensive, but they did that many years ago. Instead of waiting until the event, let's do it now.
Well, and to your point, Ross, and then I'll pause there because I'm sure Craig's got a follow-up. What I would say is that, we can also be sensible about it. So in Burbank, we don't need, ideally we'd underground all the lines, but we don't need to underground all of them tomorrow. We know where our high wind areas are up in the foothills, so those are the places we should prioritize. And I do think the state should legislate a bit more with carrot and stick. We should set targets and deadlines so we're actually undergrounding these lines. We should also try to find more resources to actually help local jurisdictions like Burbank Water and Power do it, because they know just as well as we know where the risks are. It's a matter of financing it.
Well, we've got a candidate right now for governor, and his commercial says, if you elect me, I'm going to lower all water and power bills 25%. And I look at that, and I listen to that, and I say, people are going to believe that. And our politicians now are they make statements, that they don't keep and they don't care about keeping, and they're not held accountable to. Because how are you going to lower Burbank water and power by 25% when we own our own utility here and the state doesn't control the rates? How are you going to do that? And you can't do that.
No.
So it's a blatant lie, is what he's saying, and nobody checks them on it.
I agree with you, Craig. And for you guys and for your listeners, I would say if you're wondering why rates are so high, generally speaking, it's one of three things in California. Obviously, we have our energy goals, clean energy economy. So that's probably what this candidate's referring to. We're going to forget about getting to 100% carbon neutral by 2045. That would lower cost. But the other thing I worry about is wildfire mitigation. That's another third of the huge driver in rate increases. The only thing presumably this candidate wouldn't want to cut back on is we also need more dollars, and this is why your rates go up, for transmission and distribution. As we're getting more energy from projects out of state, like it actually costs money to bring it here to California. So, like you said, this candidate's out there promising something that really resonates with people right now. What he's not saying, or whoever they are, what they're not saying is that to actually achieve that, we would have to make backwards progress in terms of wildfire mitigation, to your point, Ross, and in terms of all those climate goals. But what you just hit on, Craig, is people are struggling right now. People are hurting. And so, yeah, we want clean energy, but how much are we willing to pay? How much can we pay to achieve it?
So look at the electricity costs. Trump stopped all the wind farms. It says, we can't do the wind farms anymore. But yet how many of those wind farms were supplying the power for Northern California for all those AI computers that's pulling a ton of energy? And now they are restricted from using that. So once again, where is the power going to come from?
Yeah.
And where because we're going backwards and not trying to use clean energy.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think something that maybe is a little controversial, but I don't think it's that controversial, is nuclear power. I'm not saying we should embrace nuclear tomorrow, but what I'm saying is we used to have a larger portfolio of nuclear energy in our energy portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And now look, we've shied away from it because there are truly unanswered questions about how you properly handle and dispose of that waste. But at the same time, we have to be honest with the public and say we can't meet all of our energy demands in a really cold winter day or a high peak, hot summer day with wind, solar, and geothermal. There just isn't enough that we can generate. Perhaps if we could solve the long-term battery storage problem so you could store it for a day at a time, maybe. So the point is if we're not going to seriously look at nuclear, is it green hydrogen? What is the stable baseload power source that we can rely on and we can crank up on a really hot heat dome sort of day? That's where I don't think we've answered that question. We've spent a lot of time talking about all the things we don't like, but we have to get a lot more realistic with people right now, because whenever we don't do that and we have to fire up those peaker plants that Burbank Water and Power operates, well, for all of us environmentalists out there, that breaks my heart that we have to do that. But we haven't answered, well, if we're going to transition off of fossil fuel, what do we actually replace it with that's reliable and affordable?
Okay. I think those are good responses. I think it's for people to think about.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw another.
Yes, sir.
Another change the topic here. Something you might have, not inside knowledge, but you will understand more than most people. But your former boss, the Attorney General.
Yeah.
He has now, I think, filed 55 lawsuits against the Trump administration for various reasons. Those lawsuits need lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
There's 55 lawsuits, and probably there's 2 or 3 lawyers in every law. Where are we justifying this expense of all those lawsuits and all those lawyers to litigate this? And what are we not spending that money on? Because I'm sure his budget in advance didn't include enough for 50 or 60 lawsuits against the federal government. So money has to come from somewhere for that. And isn't that money that we should be using for other things in this world besides suing the federal government? That's a lot of money. And you have inside information because you used to be working for the Attorney General's office. Now, I don't say you have anything to do with these lawsuits, but you have an understanding of what goes on in a situation like this. So, what do you think about the amount of waste we're wasting money on these lawsuits? In my opinion, because in 3 years, life will go back to normal again.
Well, I think I'll respectfully disagree, Craig, that we're wasting money, but I will acknowledge that what you just brought up are legitimate concerns and points that we debated on the assembly floor. So just to give a little context, and then I'll more directly answer your question. About a year ago at this time, one of the first votes I took in the Assembly was to allocate $25 million from the general fund so that DOJ could initiate all these lawsuits. And look, there were a lot of folks, Republicans, moderate Dems, who raised these very points. And look, it does come at a cost. What I would say, though, is that I do think that, at least to a degree, some of that spending has been warranted. So I'll give you one concrete example. You might remember earlier this year, there was a point in time where President Trump was saying that he was going to impound money that Congress had allocated to California and just not send it. We were able to take him to court, win, and unfreeze a lot of that money.
That was money to the universities? Or is that a different one?
There was a couple of times.
There's so many of them. Yeah.
The universities, SNAP. And so I would say, I don't think, the point I'm trying to make is, we shouldn't just file lawsuits for the sake of filing lawsuits. And 50 does seem like a high number. On the other hand, I think there are some righteous times where we have sued the administration as overstepping their authority. And certainly when Congress has made a decision to give the state of California X million or billion dollars, whatever it is, and the president is just saying, I don't feel like it, I'm not going to allow it to happen. Certainly, I think in that case, a lawsuit more than pays for itself. But I can tell you, having worked for Rob Bonta, generally speaking, he's had a pretty good track record of success. And in fact, last time in the first Trump administration, granted it was Javier Becerra, I think we won about 2/3 of the cases that we brought. So if we are having similar success, then I think that you can make the case that there's some value to
Do we recover costs in those lawsuits when that happens?
It depends on the circumstance, but so it depends on what kind of a lawsuit. Generally speaking, if you're in a civil case, you can recover, in theory, the cost of litigation. But in this case, you're dealing with the federal government, so probably not. What I would say, though, is that one of the things that we included when we appropriated the money is we said that DOJ has to have a public-facing portal, and I can provide you guys the link after this, where you can actually go and see how much money is being spent on each lawsuit, the success metrics. Certainly, Craig, I would say if we start losing more cases than we're winning and we're not getting a good return on investment, that would be a change in circumstance. And the $25 million isn't forever. Clearly, they'll have to come back for more. So when it does, we're going to have to look at, are we getting a good return on our investment?
And I think you have to also look at if a lawsuit takes a year to 2 years to go through.
True.
And by the time it goes through, he's got a year left.
Yeah.
I understand if it would go quicker through the system, but sometimes it does not go very quick, and that's a lot of lawyer hours being spent. So, but that's as far as I look at that and as a taxpayer I go, well, that's kind of
well. And I'll give you one more example, Craig, because to validate your concern. So I'll give you the flip side of the coin. So one of your earlier questions tonight was should people feel like we're actually listening to them and responding to them? I'll give you one example where I think that we did, but there is cost and there's risk associated with that. So we've had ICE operating in our community and in Los Angeles more broadly speaking. So we passed two bills this year, SB 627 and SB 805, which did two things. One bill prohibited the masking of federal law enforcement, so they can't wear a mask.
Right, but they said they're not going to respond. They're not going to respect that law. So
that's
what
true.
Do we do? It's like we got to release the Epstein files in 30 days. They didn't do that. Nobody seems to. They do what they want to do. They don't care about deadlines and laws.
Well, exactly. And to your point, the other bill, just by the way, had to do with identification that the officer wears. But I do agree with you, Craig. Like, we did something that the community was asking for. We listened to constituents, but now the consequence is the federal government hasn't just said they won't follow it. They're taking us to court. They don't think it's constitutional. And then now our Department of Justice has to defend it.
More money.
It's true. And the other thing that's really sad about this entire equation is that I don't have a great degree of confidence in the Supreme Court to be fair and neutral when the
fair? You know where the fair is. It's in Pomona, and it starts in May. That's
true.
That's the only thing when you talk about fair, and Supreme Court should go out there and visit.
I agree, but I will say this, and I know there's more topics, but I will say when I'm voting on legislation up there in the Capitol, these are all the things I'm considering, because you're right. Sometimes there's competing values. Like, yes, we want to stand up for our immigrant community, we want to make a point, but to your observation, Craig, we also have to be realistic that It comes at a cost. There's always a trade-off. It's like the utility rate conversation. We want to achieve our climate goals, but who's going to bear the brunt of it? Who's going to pay for it? Working people that need to do their laundry at 6 p.m. and are going to pay a lot through the nose because rates are going up. And so that, I think that's the challenge, is that politicians at the local level, yes, but especially at the state level, it is so easy to look for the quick win or, the flashy headline. It's really hard to think about the policy thoughtfully and say, okay, what is in the long-term best interest of our people?
Let's take, for example, you are our assembly member for Burbank and several other local cities.
Sure.
How many people are not going to doctor's appointments, aren't going to church anymore, are afraid to leave their house for that fear? That fear is going to take years to get over that for people, and here in Burbank, are they picking up? What have they picked up? One or two, a couple of people here in town, and it kind of gets you that there's now, I call them, I don't want to say vigilante groups, but we started a radio watch group how many years ago to pick up when people their dogs would poop in the park, and we were on patrol for that. Now there's these groups gathering to watch for ICE agents coming into your city.
Yeah.
They could be doing a lot more stuff than sitting waiting for ICE to come into Burbank.
Well, I think it's a challenge because, to the folks that are part of, I think it's Burbank Community Defense, I applaud them to the extent that these are people that feel, I would imagine, kind of helpless, powerless in the situation where you see a federal government resembling more and more like Hitler on the rise in the 1930s in Germany. I mean, it's just all rules of fair play are out the window. But to your point, though, Ross, I mean, there is that line of how much is it helping, and then at what point are you almost instilling more fear by riling people up? And that's and that's the environment in which Donald Trump operates. It's all about fear. I mean, they may only have 2 ICE operations any given day, but all of Los Angeles, all 12 million people that call the region home, are fearful of if their community is going to get hit that day. And so that's his playbook. He's driving an entire immigrant community underground. And the last thing I'll say, Ross, because Craig, you might want to jump in or have a different topic, but the real cost in all of this is that this is really going to hurt public health and public safety. When you're afraid to call 911, crimes like domestic violence go unreported. When you don't go to the doctor because you're afraid that you're going to get picked up and you'll never see your family again, medical procedures go unfulfilled, things are untreated, and then they do wind up in the ER. And guess what? They get the services they need because physicians have taken the Hippocratic Oath, and then we all pay more for it anyway. I mean, that's the ironic thing, is if we really want to promote public health, public safety, you want these communities that are feeling more isolated than ever right now to actually engage with public health entities. You want them to engage with law enforcement and report crime. And doing the opposite, it plays to the crowd, to Donald Trump's base, but it actually makes a less safe community. And that's the truth. But we as Democratic elected officials, because we've been railing against Donald Trump, we got to do a better job of connecting those dots for people and saying, if you want public safety, do not embrace what this man is selling.
Well, you're right. I'm going to change topics a little bit for you. We've been some pretty serious stuff here going on. Let's talk, and this is serious, but it's a little not as
Sure.
Let's talk about the entertainment industry a little.
Yeah.
something that really that affects Burbank and all that. Is, number one, we have the big merger possibly going through.
Yep.
And we don't know what that merger really is going to mean for the future of Warner Brothers land. They may decide to come in and make it like Universal Studios and put a City Walk type thing in and amusement rides and everything else into that property. And I kind of talked to the mayor about that and said, "Are we zoned to make sure that this doesn't happen?" There's really no answer to that. So, but okay, that's the big merger is a huge thing. But what about the local people, the jobs and everything else? It's too bad that in all the tariffs that Trump did, he couldn't have put a tariff on going to other countries for production. Yeah. Keep production in the United States, and especially in California, and especially here in Burbank. So what are your thoughts on, because this is your backyard?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Craig, I appreciate the question. And I'll just give the background of saying, as you guys know, we bolstered the film and television tax credit program this year because we understand how critical it is to our economy.
Well, let me ask you real quick on
Yes,
this, because I don't know the specifics.
Oh.
Are we matching other states or other countries, or are we better to really lure people to stay here or to come back here?
It's a great question. Generally speaking, we're one of the top in the nation. I can't remember at this point if New York has doubled up and passed us again, but we're one of the top states in the country in terms of those that have set a cap, a limit. We're one of the highest, if not the highest. There are other states that have an uncapped program, meaning that they will spend however much comes to their state. So like Georgia. So in that way, we'd be trailing them. But I would say on the whole, what we did this year was made a $330 million program, a $750 million program, which is huge. And we expanded the kind of content that can take advantage of the tax credit program. So like animation's a huge employer in this town. They can now buy into the incentive program and have a reason to stay here. So those are the good things we did. But to your point, Craig, I mean, I'm concerned. Obviously, I'm concerned for two reasons. The first and foremost reason is jobs. What's the future of Warner Brothers Studios? How much content's going to be created here? Are people going to get pink slips overnight? And I want to be clear, I'm not trying to sound the alarm. It's going to be a while before the merger is finalized. We don't know what the impact is. I do think that policymakers should be both sounding the alarm to the public and to federal regulators, but also engaging with the parties at the table, saying, however this works out, we want jobs to stay in our community. And we should be looking at local incentives and cutting red tape locally to make it more enticing to film here and to keep jobs here. Quick note I'll mention is Councilmember Adrien Nazarian in City of LA introduced 9 motions to make it easier to film content in LA. Burbank should do the same thing tomorrow. They should take his blueprint and say his concepts of like a $1 per day for a film permit. Do that in Burbank. Like all of that should be done locally.
Well, when you talk about this merger, if it happens or if it doesn't, I don't know. I don't think I have talked to one person that works in the industry that says Netflix is good to work for. They take their production out of the U.S., going to Canada, going to Europe all the time.
Yeah, London's a big location.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just watched a special, but also how many households have Netflix?
Oh, everybody has it, right?
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
They're the largest. So where do they get the money?
Yeah.
From you and me, folks.
Well, and to your point, Ross, so going back to the merger at hand, it is concerning because you're right. Look, I'm going to take another local example. So we had NBC, it merged with Universal, and then Comcast bought that entity. So we've seen this before. The difference about this time, though, is that Netflix operates under a model. I mean, their mission is to make film studios and going to the movies a thing of the past. I mean, so I would say this is a unique threat to the industry that we haven't historically faced. That's right. You're holding up your phone, and that's where people are watching their content. On the other hand, what I would say is I have my concerns about Netflix. I also have separate concerns about Paramount. I think we would all agree that we would love it if Warner Brothers could just continue to operate as Warner Brothers. Unfortunately, this industry is consolidating and changing, and so I think change is coming. I think what we should be doing is trying to steer it towards a better outcome and really emphasizing that no matter what that merger looks like, who's in charge of that studio, it can't just be a museum to Hollywood's past. It needs to be an active place for film production. We got to keep jobs locally. At the state level, Craig and Ross, we're going to be looking at even building on our work this year, more incentives to keep production in California, where we need the locals to do even more. I'm not saying that they haven't done anything by any stretch, but where they can do even better, in my view, have a film commission or a dedicated film office. Look at like what Santa Clarita's doing. They have an actual local financial program that they've committed to being an extra added incentive to film in their city. Look at what LA is doing, trying to cut the red tape any place that they can. I, in the legislature, can try to keep production in California. We need the city council and we need city staff really hyper-focused on how do we make sure that production comes to Burbank and not any other city.
They need to lure, you're right, these film companies, because the majority of these people, when you drive down the street, I did yesterday, Frank's, famous restaurant. It's been in how many shows?
Oh my God, so many.
They're filming out there.
Yeah,
those
they
are
are.
local folks. Those are local people that are working those jobs. They're not flying in from other countries and other states. They're local.
I think the assembly member from Burbank needs to write a letter to the Burbank City Council outlining these steps and saying we need to act now on this instead of down the line, 5 months from now, a year from now. I think it's a priority that would help our city. And I think maybe you should spell out a list of things that we should be doing immediately, and let's see if we can get it on the agenda.
We are in a crisis. We are in a crisis, folks. The production here is nil. You talk to anybody, excuse me, talk to the local dry cleaners, how their business is affected. We need to do something now, not 6 months, not a year. Let's get it done now.
Well, and the last thing I'll say, Craig, is I appreciate your comment. I appreciate your comment too, Ross, but you're totally right, Craig. I will be engaged on this issue. I like to come to the table, and I'll say, by the way, I've had great conversations with Councilmember Anthony, with our incoming mayor, our new mayor, Mayor Takahashi, about this issue, and I look forward to more conversations. Look, I want to be collaborative. I'm not the duly elected council member for Burbank, so I'm not going to tell them what they should do, but what I will do, to both your point, is I am more than happy to say, this is what I'm seeing other jurisdictions doing. Absolutely. This is a toolbox from which you could pick, and I think any or all of these ideas are great. And I am more than happy to show up and voice my support for the council taking any and all kinds of action. And I think it's an all the above approach. So I'm hopeful that they will. I'm cautiously optimistic that they will. I think all 5 of them care about the community. They get it. They represent the media capital of the world.
They're hearing from their constituents.
Exactly.
They're getting evicted. They're getting kicked out of Burbank. They can't afford to keep their kids in the local school. It's a trickle-down effect here, folks.
That's right. And so and to the extent that any of them may listen to this, I mean, I would just say my message is I'm not here to tell you what you should do, but what I am here to do is say we want to help. We want to be helpful. We'll gladly share any and all of the ideas that we're seeing around the region. And if there's something that we can do, show up a meeting, show support, get data for you from the State Film Commission, like we're here. Again, like I want production in California, but Burbank's my home. Allie works in the industry. It's deeply personal to me. So the council will have my full and complete partnership on that.
Okay, there's a good example. Your wife works in the industry, and who knows where her job is in 6 months to a year.
Yeah. It's a pressure we face. We talk about it every day. I mean, when people are saying they're uncertain and they're worried about the future of Warner Brothers, it's not an abstract concept to me. That's dinner table talk in our house. So like I get it, and I will say that the state did something this year. We need to do a whole lot more, but we did something this year. I applaud the city for starting the conversation about the Film Commission and getting the consultant on board. But 2026 has to be the year of action. No more talk. It needs to be about delivering results. And the state can't rest on our laurels either. We got to build on what we did and do more.
Ready to turn the page again?
Sure, let's do it. What do you got?
What's on your script?
We're gonna let's move to transportation.
Okay.
Let's talk about infrastructure and things like that. Okay, so Burbank's got 2 bridges that are over 60 years old and both need replacing and modernization. We have a thing called this BRT that they want to kind of shove down our throats down Olive Avenue. Now, I know that's more of the Metro Board, which is not a state thing, but what are your thoughts on infrastructure and on transportation and it affects the local Burbank people?
So I would say 2 things. Going back to our conversation about housing, Sacramento does a really great job. I'm being a little facetious, but like a really great job of talking about more housing, mandating it, upzoning, all that. We
love SB 35, by the way,
What was that?
We love SB 35. Thanks for shoving that down our throats.
I know.
We all appreciated that.
I know.
No, you were not involved.
I was not involved in that one. No, but what we're not doing a good enough job is actually building the infrastructure to make these communities that people want to be in, or in places they can get in and out of. So the point I'm trying to make is we absolutely have to do a better job. Look, a big part of what the state can do is more resources. I'm a big believer in talk about our wins, but I also think it's important that you guys and your listeners hear about our failures too. We introduced Assembly Bill 939 this year, which would have been a $20 billion infrastructure and transportation bond for bridge replacement, for new roads, new alternatives to driving. Like, it was all about transportation infrastructure. Now, that one did not get a hearing. It didn't get out of Transportation Committee. I think it was a missed opportunity, although I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the reason that was given was that we couldn't afford more debt servicing at the state with our budget deficit. And I can't say that's a totally unreasonable answer. But what I would say, though, is that in future years, we've got to find more opportunities for revenue generation that is focused and dedicated on transportation and building those infrastructure projects. Because when you build those replacement bridges, including the Olive Avenue Bridge, whatever the future of the BRT, we need a new bridge. You're going to put a lot of people to work, a lot of crafts building that bridge. So I look at it as it's not just good for transportation. It certainly is, especially if you build a bridge with like dedicated bike,
Good for the economy.
all that
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely, yeah.
Exactly. It's about creating jobs. It's the one thing the government can really do to help actually create jobs.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see some, hopefully get some progress. I mean, transportation, we can have all the bus routes in the world. We have the Burbank bus that nobody really rides.
Yeah.
If
We did that show when you were mayor. I
We
remember.
did on the bus. I
if
remember that.
if the results aren't really helping people or having people use them, then we can have all the systems in the world, but they have to be convenient for people to use. I mean,
And safe.
And safe.
And to your point, Craig, I would mention, in terms of success, one thing that we did this year was we worked with Lori Wilson, an assembly member from Northern California, to run a bill about violence on public transit. So it was a bill brought by the bus drivers, the operators of public transit, and we actually stepped up both the punishments and the stay-away orders to try and build a transit system where if somebody's coming on and accosting a transit operator, they don't get to keep abusing the system and putting everybody else at jeopardy. Those are where I think more things that the state can legislate and make sure that we have hopefully affordable and reliable transit, but also transit that is safe. That's a really critical thing too. If people can ride the red line and know it's safe, they'll use it.
Well, I'm curious, and we've talked about it before. You sit on several committees.
Yes, sir.
Committees that you have wanted to sit on with your experience working for DOJ, being an attorney. Are there currently, all the committees that you're on, it's like a chess match
Sure.
or checkers. I mean, are things moving forward? Are you, getting bills passed that you specifically are really pushing for currently?
Oh, absolutely. And if I'm looking down at my phone, I apologize, but I wanted to pull this up. So I would say in terms of public safety, which is the one committee that I chair, it's been a really productive year. We had over 200 bills that were introduced that we processed. Not all of them made it through the other house. Not all of them were signed by the governor. But we did a lot of legislation this year around not only looking at new crimes, new enhancements, new sentences for example, criminal threats, people that are putting in a bomb threat to a mosque or a synagogue, for example. We wanted to deter that. We also put in place a lot more bills around reentry, folks that are leaving prison, making sure that they have access and connection to housing, job placement. Incarcerated firefighters was a really hot topic this year. But the reason I was looking at my phone is I wanted to bring this up. When I took office a little more than a year ago, people were really feeling unsafe in Los Angeles and in California. I don't share this to suggest that the work is done, and I certainly don't want to take credit for this. This is not all the work of Nick Schultz, but myself, my colleagues, the governor, and local electeds working together. These stats came out from the Major Cities Chiefs Association, so these are the police chiefs for all of the major cities in California. Homicides are down 18% statewide. Robberies down 18%. Aggravated assaults down 9%. I bring that up to say that violent crime is trending downward and substantially. So I think that if we continue doing what we started this year, hopefully those numbers are going to get even better. And I think that's how we start to bring back safety in California, and people all of a sudden maybe do feel more comfortable riding the bus, riding the train, walking in their neighborhood.
You mean your neighbors might leave their front doors unlocked like they used to 30 years ago?
I don't know if we're there yet, but I would say, look, if that was a report card for my work this year, I would take that as, I'm not going to give myself an A, but that's a passing grade. I think if it's trending downward, that means that what we're doing is working, and now it's about, okay, great, we had one good year. Fantastic. But it's only going to make a difference if we have 2, 3, 4, 5 good years back to back. So back to work in 2 weeks, as they say.
Well, new chapter?
Sure, let's do it.
I know your time's limited and we got a lot of topics. Let me jump into schools and school funding. You have a daughter about ready to start the Burbank school system, and you're going to be part of that whole system.
Yes, sir.
We're in financial trouble, substantial financial trouble. Like I said in the beginning, the lotto was supposed to solve that. But what's happened is the extra money we got from the lotto became money that was now taken away from the state. So we're still in the same situation we were 40 years ago, but our schools are in dire need, not only of infrastructure, but also to pay teachers and everything else. So kind of my comment or question is, and once again, you can't do this all yourself. You're not the king of California.
No.
But what do you see to help these schools and get through this financial? There are schools going bankrupt right now, and there are schools that they have to close down schools. There are schools that are ending sports, and like in Pasadena, combining the sports into one school. I mean, there's a lot of serious stuff going on that is going to really affect the average student development in most formative years of their lives.
Yeah, it's a great question, Craig, and I would add that, like the entertainment industry question, this is one that's personal to us because as we look at the district's financial situation and as there's concerns about what could happen down the road, look, if there were school closures, heaven forbid, like that could impact us directly. So we're feeling it. I would say there's a couple things. At the state level, we have to look at school funding. These are the things that we can control.
Well,
there we go. Sorry, Ross with the selfie there. I love it.
You know that always the big things. When people talk about school funding, they always say, "Remember, students don't vote." That's why they always get left behind.
That's right. So look, we actually upped per pupil funding in California to over, I think, $26,000 this year. The issue that's specific to Burbank is you have a district with consecutive years of declining enrollment. So I would say there's a couple things that we can do. And by the way, both of these ideas came as a product from conversation with the board members and with the interim superintendent, Oscar Macias. So I share this to say, whether you agree with these folks or not, I can at least report to you and your listeners that they're engaging with our office. They are coming to the assembly and saying, we need help. Here are our ideas for change. We're obviously taking their ideas, but we're vetting them, right? We're making sure that they actually make sense and would make good policy. But I think the major thing we have to look at is how we fund our schools. As you all know, we fund it based on average daily attendance as opposed to enrollment. That's something that Senator Portantino talked about for years. We agree, and that's something that we're hoping to champion this year. We want to make it so that even if you only have 95 out of 100 students reporting every day, you get funding for all 100. Because that 5%, to your point earlier, Ross, they might not be coming to school because they're worried about whether their parents are going to get picked up. We have to account for that. That's one thing. The other thing I would say is that there have been some proposals from the Burbank School Board and from the superintendent related to the categorizations of funding. There's a lot of funding that they actually can't touch because they don't meet criteria to tap into. So they've asked for more flexibility, or at least to apply it to the strategic reserves that they have to maintain. So these are the things that we're looking at. The point I'm trying to make is at the state level, it's all funding.
Right, I agree with you saying. I don't know the specific reasons, but I know that some districts receive money for certain things and diversities and things like that Burbank can't get. Why can't we open up that funding to all the districts so Burbank's on an even footing with other districts? Because other districts are getting the funding and then they're recruiting out of Burbank.
Well, and that's exactly it. So at the state level, we can talk about looking at the criteria, expanding it, giving more flexibility to transfer funds between different categories. Those are all the tools that we can do at the state level. The local solution is going to be we have to find a way to reverse the downward trends in enrollment. And I think that where that becomes difficult is we can do all this zoning reform and all this stuff at the state level. We need our city staff and council, to the extent that they can, and I'm not saying they don't want to, but we need them to find more opportunities for missing middle income housing in our community. Because when the average home sale price is $1.4 million and your kids and grandkids can't afford to live here, there are fewer kids in our schools. We have to solve the affordability crisis.
Not only that, but you're building so many apartments that are just 1 or 2 bedroom apartments where it's just a couple. They don't have children moving in. So there's less children even moving in.
Yep, and I will say the council members I've talked to, is special credit to Constantine Anthony, have talked for years about, for example, the liability that applies to condominium development and that leading to less condos being built. We need more townhomes being built. It's not that we're trying to take away from our stockpile of single family homes, but the reality is we have a ton of apartments. We have a nice, healthy stockpile of single family homes, and we do not have a lot of in between. So how do you, paying $2,000+ a month for rent, ever save up enough to put that down payment down for your $1.4 million house? You can't. What you can do is have something in between, like a condo, like a townhome, where maybe a young and it's still going to be beyond reach for so many people. That's the sad thing. But maybe some hardworking young professionals could scrape together enough to get that condo at $600,000 and then build that equity and maybe upgrade one day. We're not doing any of that. At the state level, we can look at things like liability. We can look at other impediments to construction. We can do a lot of it. And where we'll need the locals to help and assist is just actually greenlight these projects with more of a home ownership component, I think.
Okay, Ross, anything follow up? Or?
Well, it concerns me because you look at a town like Burbank, there's no stock to buy.
Right.
You're not building single-family homes. You're kind of locked into it. But what I noticed that we're in a situation now that was caused way before your time being elected, and how do we correct so many issues? I don't think our listeners, and followers understand how much there is going on.
Like you were saying before, though, you have all these lands like the IKEA property, like those. But the problem is these are privately owned. You can't make somebody develop them.
You're
They're
right.
sitting there, and the banks aren't going to finance them.
Yeah.
Well, how are we going to solve those problems? Because that's not publicly owned land. So it's all a catch-22 in one way.
Well, what kind of gets me is the Fry's property. Let's take that for example. They leveled that Fry's building. They were supposed to build. That project is now not happening.
Yeah.
You're talking how much land out
The
there.
old Bob Hope Museum, too. That's another one. That's just sitting on.
There's the IKEA. How many years have we looked at the old IKEA not getting developed? Or,
Decades.
like you say,
And then you look at the ranch property, which is now the #1 production facility in the United States as far as what they can do, and that got built within 2 years. So they can do what they want to do it because they're making money.
Exactly.
So anyhow, let's get off of that.
Sure.
Your time is short. We understand right now. So we're in the epilogue now. The chapters are over. We're in the epilogue.
yeah, we got a call from the Southwest Airlines.
let's,
They need me back? Okay.
Yes. So 2025 was your first year, and
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sure a lot of new experiences and a lot of learning curves and all that. But 2026 is now on the horizon. So talk about, kind of what you learned in 2025 and what you foresee in 2026. What are your goals? What are your ambitions? What do you think you can do better now that you have a lay of the land?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And by the way, we're sitting here and it's, I'm just looking at my calendar. It's Monday, December 22nd. I have a little digital clock on my desk. I go back to session in less than 2 weeks. So our first session is January 5th, 1:00. So 2026 we're on the eve of it, right? Like through the holidays, like less than 2 weeks, we are back in session. I would say what I learned when I think about all the bills that I worked this year, really two things. Understanding the importance of quality legislation as opposed to just doing something to look like you're doing something. I'm really proud of the bills that we got signed by the governor. And when I look back at the start of the year, there are maybe 1 or 2 bills where I'm like, you know what, maybe I wouldn't have run that in hindsight. We don't you don't need to run 30 bills. If you run 10 quality bills that can actually solve problems in California, that's a great year. If you can get all those signed by the governor. The other thing I would say is, when I walked in, especially being on council, I was so in the weeds on policy, and I still am, as you guys know. But I've learned in the course of this year, there is that disconnect. Like, we're doing great work in the Capitol, and yet so many people don't know about it. So it's understanding the politics of, you can be working on all this great stuff, but when people are just worried about making their rent today, or whether their job's going to be there next year, unless you're talking their language and talking about affordability, cost of living, making it easier to survive, they're not going to have the bandwidth or the attention to just let you drone on and on about something else. So I think in that way, I'm going to be more focused next year. I'll give you two highlights. Obviously, we're going to continue to focus on jobs and housing front and center. Those are going to be everything. So building on the film tax credit, finding ways to not upzone everything, but I'm saying for all those parcels we already have identified, the Fry's, the IKEA, the Kmart, how do you actually get housing built on there? What are the other costs and impediments and barriers? That's going to be the focus. The other thing I'll quickly say, and then I'll hand it back to you, Craig, is in terms of public safety, because I get this one a lot. I think there's a couple categories where it's going to be there's going to be a hot topic this upcoming year. Probably the biggest one, though, is DUI enforcement. I know the LA Times, Cal Matters, folks have been talking about how state of California has more driving under the influence offenses and fatalities and injuries than almost anywhere else in the country. And that makes the road less safe for pedestrians, bicyclists. You guys are the first media source I'm announcing it, but at the end of January, we'll be holding a press conference in the Capitol. We might also do one locally, so we'll keep you guys posted. But I'm spearheading with Lori Wilson a bipartisan legislative package, probably about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 bills, all aimed at DUI detection and enforcement in California, from what we can do to prevent people from getting intoxicated and driving a car in the first place, to having a penalty structure that incentivizes them to do the right thing but takes dangerous drivers off the road. So that is something that last year in the first year, Craig, I was more just surviving and trying to come up with some good ideas. Being a year in, now I'm looking at it more holistically. Here's a problem, and we need our chair of transportation, who oversees DMV, all the regulatory side, to work with me over here in public safety, handling the courts and the justice system. And how do you have a package of bills that actually tackle the issue from every angle?
Well, that kind of gets me, because we have state-of-the-art cars now. You can tell your car to start. You don't need, years ago, you had to put a key in the key slot. If you were drunk, you probably couldn't find the key slot. Now, you have a key fob sitting in your pocket, you push a button, your car starts. I've shot plenty of DUI-related accidents, fatality. Gosh. Just 2 weeks ago, right here, a half a block from our studio, Burbank Police posted a video. You might have seen it.
I did.
The guy came around. Thank God there weren't more people coming down.
Bounced right off the wall of Warner Brothers.
Right? Yeah. Deuce, drunk.
Yeah.
He went to jail. But we got to do something to stop these people from driving. Our cars are.
I wonder how many times has been arrested for doing that. I find that most people arrested for DUI, it's not the first time.
No, I agree, and I'll give you just a slight preview of what I'm looking at. So in California, assuming you don't hit and injure someone or hit and kill them, heaven forbid, if it's just what we call a technical DUI, so you're pulled over, you're drunk, okay, you can only be charged for a felony on your 4th in 10 years. That's a lot. Most states, it's lower. So we're looking at what makes sense. Should it be eligible for felony filing at, say, your 3rd? Another thing we're looking at is the license suspension period. So you actually can have a longer license suspension for injuring someone than killing them.
But you know what gets me? Those people, and I've witnessed it numerous times, those people that get their license suspended, yes, they go into court, give us your license. They still get behind the goddamn wheel and drive. And I'm going to make a point here. Craig and I don't drink. I never have my whole life. Mm-hmm. It's not sitting at a bar drinking your scotch and whiskey and whatever, folks. It's that one glass of wine after another glass of wine till that bottle is gone until you open another. You're the ones that are out there killing people and getting DUIs. People need to take responsibility with their drinking. And I don't mean hard liquor. I mean wine. Wine's a big thing now. You know, I witness it when I go places. Mm-hmm. I just can't believe how much wine people go through. That's alcohol, folks. No bottom line.
Well, and here's the thing, Ross. I mean, if I can have my crystal ball for a moment and look at the future, another bill in the package will likely be regarding the installation of ignition interlock devices in your car and making that probably mandatory for most first-timers. But what I'll say is this: if this package of bill and other bills like it don't solve the problem, and then this is my plea to the public, then you might find a day where every car is a Waymo vehicle and you just don't have the option to drive. And I have concerns about, autonomous vehicles driving on our roads. I already have concerns about there. But at the end of the day, the epidemic of road violence, whether it's road rage or DUI fatalities, it's unacceptable in California. So I bring all that up to say, Craig, back to your original question. When I took the job a year ago, I knew individually kind of the things I wanted to work on. Now, a year in, being in leadership, I see these broader problems at play in California: affordability, public safety, you name it, transit, housing. And now I'm thinking in terms of you can't fix that in 1 year or with one bill, but how do you have a real effort to make it better this year? And then how do you start building on that next year? It's that longer term kind of higher bird's eye view perspective that Laura had, that Adam Schiff had, both in the state Senate and then the Congress. It's like as you get more experience, you start thinking beyond your time there and really thinking about how do you have lasting change. So.
Well, a good point. What it takes to get into your phone.
Difficult.
But what it takes to get into your car and just drive away, make it that difficult. I'm not a drinker, as I said, so I'll go through. Yes, it's a pain to do double authentication and all that. But you know what? Getting into a car if I was drunk, if that would save one more person.
That's right.
It should be done.
I think that's totally right.
Well, I think we've reached the end. Never the end. We've reached a pause because this has always be a continuing conversation.
Well, we always welcome. You live here in the media district. Your backyard. You were mayor here in Burbank. It was your first elected position.
That's right.
You've got some ground under you now. We'd love to have you in the studio because it's a medium for people to hear you. I mean, you probably shake a lot of hands every day. You run into a lot of people, but with like a podcast where thousands of people can listen to your topics and so forth, it's a great medium, and that we want to keep giving to you.
Well, I appreciate it, Ross, and I'll take that as my curtain call. But I'll just say, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm always happy to come back. And I want to be really clear: y'all have a great council, you got great staff, you got great people running the city. I'm always here. I'll be happy to share my perspective. I want to be a resource. I never want to be perceived as meddling in the local issues because I respect the fact that you got 5 independently elected people that were chosen by the voters to represent them. But Burbank's my home. I am certainly going to do everything that I can at the state level to set it up for success. And, whether you're a commissioner or a council member or just a concerned citizen listening to this, if we can be helpful in any way, our office is here, still on 3rd and Magnolia, right in the city of Burbank. I mean, when I'm not in Sacramento, I'm here, and we'll keep working.
All right. Well, that's it for another show. For Ross Benson and Assemblymember Nick Schultz, this is Craig Sherwood saying, of course, like, subscribe. I know you hear that all the time, but you know what? It really does help. And if you're just listening to us in the car and driving, keep 2 hands on the wheel, and we will talk to you next time.
Happy New Year's, and don't drink and drive.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Right.
Thank you for watching our My Burbank video. Please consider a channel membership to support us, or head over to our merch store where you can pick up some great items. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the latest videos, and please don't forget to hit that like button.